Okay, I've started the broadcast and it's recording.
Okay, we got 13 participants. All right, so good afternoon. It's June 16th and 2020. And Gary, what's on your list today?
Yes, we'll start with roll call first. Chair Bernard.
Here.
Commissioner Schrader. You're on mute, Commissioner. All right, she's here. Yeah, thank you. Commissioner Savas.
Here.
Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
Commissioner Humberston.
Here.
Right. Everyone, did I do everyone? I'm sorry. Yes, that's all five. All five commissioners are present. We'll start with the coronavirus update, led as always by Nancy Bush, Director of Disaster Management and Incident Commander of the Emergency Operations Center.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. So we'll start out with our numbers for the day. Here in Oregon, for the whole state, we have 5,820 positives, 180 deaths, and 31,316 negatives. Clackamas County has 488 positives, which is an increase from Friday of last week of 33. We have 18 deaths, which from last Friday, that's an increase of 4. We have 16,535 negatives. Multnomah County has 1,556 positives. From last Friday, that's up 116. 68 deaths, which is up 1, and 36,483 negatives. Washington County has 891 positive, which is up 42 from Friday. Deaths, which is up 1, and 22,929 negatives. Current hospitalizations is 72 statewide. So some of the things that are going on here in the EOC, our PIOs are continuing to work on the Stop the Spread campaign, which is which is in several languages, and trying to get critical information out to the public regarding their role in helping us stop the spread of COVID. Our logistics is working with our EMS partners as well as our long-term care facilities to ensure that they have the adequate PPE that they need. And we're working with those that are having more outbreaks in their facilities. Some of the outbreaks that we're working, there's 3 in long-term care facilities. We're still working with the Oak Grove Fred Meyers and also with Bob's Red Mill, and there's just ongoing work there. We continue to onboard 19 new staff that are going to be working with contact tracing. And our GO team, which is our behavioral health GO team, had 2 events yesterday, and they continue to be requested throughout and by the public and from organizations as well. I'm also really happy to report that we have now completed 2 contracts for testing. One is with OHSU and the other is with Lake Oswego Fire, which helps us fill in the gaps from a few gaps that we had with phase 1, making sure that we're doing appropriate testing and can test our vulnerable populations. We continue to work with schools on their summer food programs and seeing if they need assistance there, making sure that we can fill in gaps where we can. So we have that ongoing conversation with the schools with that. We're also working with the school districts regarding the plans that they now have to develop that from the guidance from the governor's office. Public health must review those plans for each school, not just each school district, but each school. So we have assigned a full-time staff to work on that from public health. We're working on our OC schedule also through July to make sure that we can have everything here fully staffed. And I think I will stop there and see if you have any questions.
Well, Nancy, last night on the Tri-County Chair call, is Caroline on or Tracy? There was the sentence that you were referring to where the county might need to inspect all the schools' plans. Is that physically inspect the schools, or is that just look at their plan?
So my understanding is we are to review the plans and we'll be working with them on their plans throughout. I don't recall seeing anything where we have to physically go in and look at the schools.
Okay.
Would have to check that out for sure, but I don't recall reading that.
Yeah, okay, and that was the confusion last night. So that's something which is reasonable. We probably do within the confines of our budgetary concerns versus hiring somebody to go out and inspect every single school.
Right, they should be working with their own risk management teams to do that. But it's still pretty labor intensive. I mean, we are going to have to put an FTE, at least one FTE to work with the schools through the process.
And is that something you can bill the state for?
Not at this time. That is not my understanding that we can, no.
All right, so that might be something we want to address, the governor request for funding for this process.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, that would be nice. And if we can put it into CARES, I don't know that for sure yet. We're looking into it.
Okay.
Nancy, I have a question.
Sure.
My hand.
Yeah, there's 3 up. I'm not sure who was first, so go ahead, Martha.
All right, so Nancy, my question is, do we know why they're kicking this down, chain to counties? Because when we are coming up with our plans, it's all looked at by the Oregon Health Authority. So why are they designating counties as the umbrella as opposed to really being consistent across the state with the health authority actually looking and looking at plans? That's what I don't understand.
Yeah, I can only give you what I think that answer is. I mean, we obviously haven't had that conversation directly, but I think there's a couple things. Part of it is, we are the ones that they work with on a daily basis at the local level. And that makes that connection with public health too. If we have to do contact tracing, with the school at any point. And probably there's also the labor issue at the state level as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so Paul and then Ken.
Yeah, I have a couple questions and a comment. So my first question is, what do you know as far as numbers, as far as the Oak Grove Fred Meyer?
I do not have any new information on that. I do know that we continue to work with them, and also I think that, if I recall, the Department of Ag is working with them as well.
Okay. I subscribe to the OHA Daily update, so I get an email usually towards the end of the day. And yesterday, our new case numbers were down significantly from where they've been, which is too high. But they did show that 4 of the deaths in Oregon yesterday were in Clackamas County.
Mm-hmm.
That's not such a good day for Clackamas County. And in light of the governor's move last week to hit the pause button, and also learning that couple friends, family members are struck with COVID, 2 of which, and then possibly a third from another friend and his family. So it's coming home. So it's striking close to home. So I say that with the utmost caution, and I guess tomorrow the state website will be updated as far as the county measurements, that dashboard.
So usually the dashboard does not get updated on Wednesday, but we have been getting the information late in the day. Last week, I think we got it around 7:30 in the evening. So if they hold true to the last couple of weeks, we will be getting the data, but the dashboard actually will not be updated until sometime Thursday.
Yeah. Okay. My comment is along the lines. I'm kind of concerned, I guess, to some degree, really about this whole COVID situation. And, I think a lot of people need to recognize that going into phase 1 wasn't like breaking down the barn doors and everything and life's back to normal. And I've been seeing more and more people as opposed to a few weeks ago that were wearing masks. And today it's like very few people seem to be wearing masks. And that seems to be in a lot of the public places, shopping centers and so forth. So I'm kind of concerned that people may just be relaxing far too much. And yet they're also clamoring for us to open into phase 2. And I think that we all need to take responsibility, social responsibility. And I'm just concerned that maybe the messaging, and I know we're all messaging, but I'm just really wondering what we can do, or the state can do on a statewide basis to seize the airwaves, if you will, and bring that message home in a much stronger way. I don't think we're doing, I don't just think we're doing a good enough job. I think we need to saturate that message far more than it is. And I know that we are, as I sit here, Paul sits here considering phase 2, I'm looking at, a concern about, the impacts from Memorial Day, and also more importantly now the protest. And as a protester moving around the region, we know that people from Clackamas County are involved. No way to gauge that until 1, 2, 3 weeks afterwards. I'm just, on one hand, I want to see businesses succeed. On another hand, we don't want to see them go out, make the investments, and then have to shut their doors down because, we have a big, huge kick or a wave, if you will, that outsurpasses anything we've seen yet in this state. So that's my statement. And I just want to kind of bring that point home. And I don't know what we can do. Ask the governor, Jim, something, I don't know. But I think the messaging out there needs to be out there because too many people are relaxing and they're not taking this seriously.
Ken.
Yeah, Nancy, are we still in good territory with 4 of the 6 metrics that are required for phase 2?
That is the data. We don't see new data until Wednesday, so we don't get any new numbers until Wednesday. But yes, you're correct. We're not meeting 2 of the 6.
Okay. Have we considered that we may want to at least apply for the phase 2 reopening aspect and have the state tell us yes or no? Since they're not giving us the authority to make certain decisions on individualized bases, i.e. a specific business that could in fact meet criteria and is willing to do so, then I think the burden needs to be on the state, quite clearly. I also don't like the idea that they want us to help with the schools, which is, a state burden, quite frankly, and a local burden for the school districts, and yet they don't want to pay for the employee that you're going to need to help the schools do what they're supposed to do. We need to make sure the state clearly gets that message. I had one other factor in this whole thing. Have we looked at the possibility, and this may be something that we need to do regionally or statewide or something, I don't know, but talk to our radio and television stations and ask them about doing public service announcements. I have not seen anything on radio or heard anything on radio or television where there's been any announcements about social distancing, wearing masks, any of the other simple and basic things that could be done. So maybe we are missing a significant avenue of getting information out to people.
Okay.
I've seen it. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I know there's some things out by CDC, for example. But I don't think that we have done that here in Clackamas County to make that connection or in the region. So we could certainly talk to our regional partners to see if we can get some PSAs on our stations. Yeah,
it seems like it's worth a try because I haven't seen anything. And that's not to say I watch television 24/7 because I don't, but that is one avenue that doesn't seem like we've done much with, and we ought to see if we can do it. And to the best of my knowledge, PSAs don't really cost anything.
It depends on the station. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sonia.
Yeah, I really have to say I appreciate what Paul had to say about getting the message out. Martha did an awesome Facebook post that I had to share when she's at the farmer's market. And Martha, I can't remember the exact phrasing, but I protect you so you protect me. And it was real cute with pictures of little kids, real colorful with masks. And we just need to do better with the public relations. And I don't think Clackamas County can do this on our own. We really need to get a message to the state that if everyone wears a mask, I think the thing that really has impressed me so much about how effective this could be, and Nancy, you probably heard about this, was the hairstylist in Texas. There were 2 that were COVID positive with symptoms. They were both wearing masks. They saw one saw 80 patients, 80 clients. The other saw 40, and nobody after all these couple of weeks has, they didn't pass it on any customers. They didn't pass it on anybody in the workplace. I mean, that was a real good experiment to both wear masks. Can we stop the spread of this? And I know that we Oregonians have a civil libertarian streak, and we don't want to do what people don't, to tell us to do. But if we can really get that message out, I thought the governor's office did a great job on the Stay Home Save Lives campaign, but I'm just not seeing it. And in regards to the protests, I've been concerned about a lack of communication about the importance of social distancing and the importance of masks and the importance of testing. I am hearing from Dr. Dean Seidlinger that we're not seeing increase in cases from the protests. There's been 5 cases potentially linked to the protests. Everything that I'm seeing, because I'm watching the protests on TV as much as I can, people are wearing masks, which I think is very, very good. But the message of, if you want to get tested, what do? Call your healthcare provider. I mean, really honing it. If you've been involved, we want to keep people as safe as possible. That kind of messaging, as I've been looking into what other jurisdictions have been doing around testing and the protests, a lot of it is public awareness, and get to your health provider or go to the public health clinic, really utilize the resources that are there to keep people safe. But I don't know, Jim, do we want to do anything as a commission to say we want more, or does this go through EOC? What do we want to do?
More what? Advertising?
Well, just more public. I don't want to go backwards. I mean, I could really see us having to go backwards if my gosh, Union County, 90 some cases, and just like, boom, they're just like in a snap of a finger. It's just like there. And
it was a church gathering.
Yeah.
It needs to be a statewide effort.
Yeah.
Yep. Needs to be statewide, and we're going to end up having to go backwards if we do not get this message out to people. And people don't want to go backwards.
So
I don't think people ever thought that it was bad enough to worry about. And that's true. I mean, people think that. The fact is, we did a good job. And because we did a good job, people feel safer. And it's not true. We did a good job because we did it right. And now people, I mean, I went to a place yesterday, which you would probably consider a right-wing place, and people walk around with AK-47s and stuff. I mean, it was, and hardly any of them wore a mask. I did, and a couple other people, but in that building, there was hardly anyone with a mask. It was a sporting goods store that sells those things. So I do think we could do a better job with the statement. However, I do think that we should consider applying and let the governor determine when or if we open. That could occur this weekend or Friday. I don't think she's going to make the same mistake she did last time. But I think we should put an application in, which is a letter, and wait until we meet those. I'm sure she's going to make us wait till we meet those standards. Yeah, but there's no harm in putting the application in. It takes the burden off us and puts it on the governor to move forward.
So if we did that, could we put in that letter a request for more public outreach for the importance of masks and social distancing, and really
Yes.
appeal to the governor to do that within this letter of application?
Why not? Yes. Paul?
Well, you're all saying the same, thinking, we're all thinking the same way. So I support that. Matter of fact, I move, we move forward with the application of phase 2, let the governor decide when to enact that, and ask her and make a strong case for it as best we can. Even call our legislators, frankly, and put that in the letter as well, that we want to see increased public outreach to advise people and realize that we're all in this together. This is a social contract. I'm confident that the measurements and the techniques of which the OHA is applying and looking at this on behalf of the governor is, it's the framework that we have, but, let the application be there. And then when she's ready and she says Clackamas is ready, we're ready to go. And I think that without delay, we should be ready to go. But again, keep it in mind, this public's health, and I think that's where the OHA and the governor's office comes in, to be able to throttle that. But we need the messaging. Without the messaging, I can't support it. We need more messaging.
Yep, I'll second Paul's motion.
Nick,
Me too.
did you want to say something?
Yeah, I have just a couple clarifying questions, and I want to let you know what the letter needs. So I would suggest, though I will do what that you direct me to do, that we wait until we hear the data from tomorrow. So we could have a letter Thursday or Friday done after the data, but the letter needs, what day do we want to open? So that's a conversation we need to have. And then we have to have, how many contact tracers do we have now, has to be in the letter, which is easily gotten. Another attestation that we have enough PPE, which we're still struggling with gowns, and with the long-term care facility outbreaks, we've ordered gowns from OHA, but we have not received those yet, just so you know. And then address anything that was outstanding in phase 1, which included PPE and isolation. And we are working on an isolation agreement with Washington County, which I think it will cover that. And then, of course, we can add the public outreach. So that is what goes into the letter. So I will do what you direct me to do, but do we want to wait until we hear what the data says on Wednesday?
Well, I think that in the letter we can say, let's say we pick a date, the Friday after next. We
Okay.
say that we have to reach those 5 where they're 5. We assume that in a week we're going to reach those 5 standards.
6.
And we have on order PPEs that we anticipate we'll receive. So say that, assuming we reach those levels and we have adequate PPEs, we hope you'll accept our letter of opening phase 2, something like that. Is that fair?
Yeah, and that is what we did for phase 1 as well, that application. I just want the board to be aware.
I know you're, and we all are very worried about
I
this.
know.
I'm scared to death. But I think it puts it on the governor to make that decision. And we're cautiously requesting it. And Paul, and then I think Ken's after you.
Yeah, so Nancy, I don't have a problem with, with the motion directing staff. We'll wait, we can approve it on Thursday, the draft. And then, but I would argue against the date. And I'll tell you why. I think we should learn a lesson from Multnomah County. A lot of businesses went in, they thought the date was the date. They went and they bought all the restaurants, bought the food, they brought everything in, and all of a sudden the governor hits the pause button. If we do that, we're going to set everyone else up for failure. So I respectfully request that we do not put a date in there. Let the governor make the call, and then people can ready themselves when the governor makes the call. And that'll be, just like we did in phase 1. But I would ask, again, that we just move forward with the motion, bring it back on Thursday. We'll talk about it and with the letter. And I would also add that a lot of counties that went in the phase 2 did not meet all of theirs. Lane County was a great example. And I think Nancy, you know what you need to do. You need to put in there that, we have a plan to meet all these things, and here's what it is. And then the OHA and the governor's office will evaluate that. And when they say we're ready, we're ready.
Good point, Paul. Thanks for that date idea. That we didn't put our date in the letter before, and we were an outlier. Most people did. So let's do that. And Ken?
Okay.
Yeah, Paul, thank you for that, because that's what I was going to say. The other thing is, I'd like to suggest that we already have 6 standards we have to meet. We don't need to artificially create any others that just box us in. I think the letter needs to be pretty simple. Send it in. We're meeting 4 so far. If we improve on the other 2, great. But if we say, if we narrow it down even more, then we're boxing ourselves in. We shouldn't box. If we're going to get boxed in, let that be on OHA. They're the health experts. Let them box us in if that has to be done. That's my feeling.
I don't think anyone wants to increase the requirements. I would say, though, adding that, we would appreciate more attention to asking the citizens to follow the basic rules for safety.
Okay, call for the question.
All right. So the motion is to send, waiting for stats on Thursday for a review of a letter on Thursday to the governor requesting that we open phase 2.
And ask the state for more public outreach.
Yes. Well, will you please poll us?
Yes. Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Wait, your mic's not on. Is that an aye?
It's an aye.
Okay.
thank you. Commissioner Humberston,
Aye.
Chair Bernard.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Gary, I can't remember what's next on this list.
Oh, we all do that with a mute. All right, Chair, did you want to discuss the governor's eviction moratorium and its expiration date on June 30th? Jim, did you hear me?
Who?
You, Jim. Did you?
Oh, I thought you were talking to somebody else.
No, to you, the governor's eviction moratorium that expires June 30th.
Oh, yeah. The governor's eviction moratorium expires at the end of the month. The discussion was last night at the Tri-Chairs meeting was, we really feel that when that expires, there are going to be evictions, like right away. Do we want to send a letter to the governor? And actually, they're also going to talk to their boards. Do we want to send a governor requesting her to extend that eviction moratorium for another month?
Yeah.
You want to make a motion?
Okay, can I?
I'm going to come to you, Paul.
Yeah, I just want to jump in real fast. So in consideration of who they, maybe for people that aren't paying their rent, for those landlords, what safety net are we providing for them?
It's not our eviction moratorium, it's the governor's.
Right. So, and I was just looking to know if anyone knew the answer, because if there's not an answer, maybe that's something that we include in there to make sure that we're also protecting the landlords or the property owners from any financial impacts. I don't think going on in perpetuity is fair to everyone. So I think we need to have some kind of consideration for the people that are feeling those impacts.
I do too.
Can I ask a question? Isn't the Oregon housing folks, don't they have dollars for rent relief? Can we find out how they've been distributed, if so people can pay? I mean, isn't there a pipeline for that, Nancy? Do you know?
Oh, yeah, we just got in some new funding from the Oregon e-board for rent relief.
Okay.
It is 2.8 million, at this, I'm sorry, 2.9. And we are now getting that out, and we work through some of the CBOs and other groups to distribute that funding. There's, of course, I don't have it all memorized, obviously, but there's, several things that have to be in place for the person to be eligible. So there's that, but I will say too that the need probably for the county is not being met with that 2.9 million, but there is some relief, relief at this time.
All right, Sonia and then Ken.
Yeah, Nancy said most of what I was going to say, but I do know that part of that e-board money is for property owners. Targeted. And how that actually gets played out on the, in the community level, I don't know, but I do know that that's the policy from the e-board. And I also know that there's going to be a special session, and this issue is going to be coming up again. And in my last Association for Oregon Counties meeting that the leadership talked yesterday, I had suggested that we not only look at the renters, but also the property owners, because they have their mortgages to pay too. So it has to be all inclusive. And mortgages, you guys, for to not have foreclosures, that's another issue. I don't know if that's federal, but we need to be on top of that one as well. To add any non-payment to the end of the mortgage would be good policy for this.
And my understanding is the governor's going to let the legislature make this decision, not her. So that'll be one of the discussions at the session. So I got Ken.
Question. So that $2.9 million, is that given to the tenant to pay the landlord, or does it go straight to the landlord? Are there controls to make sure it goes where it's intended to go and doesn't get diverted to some other expense?
Yes, there. It is designed to work with the landlord and the tenant, and it does go to the landlord.
Okay.
Yes.
I was concerned it could get diverted to other places where and somebody just doesn't pay their rent, and I want to be sure that the rent does get paid so they don't get evicted, but the landlord gets the appropriate compensation that he or she should get.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. It looks like we're good there. So actually, did I ask for a motion? Do we want to send a letter asking the governor to consider extending the moratorium, Paul?
Well, Jim, if I just heard you correct, and I didn't know that till you said it, if the governor's going to pass it on to the legislature, I don't think there's much for us to do. So I just say we just hold and wait to see what the state does.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right. Let's move on to
Well, hey, Jim, can I just weigh in on that real quick? The governor on Friday said that she was going to call a special session in 2 weeks, and that's cutting it really close to the end of June. Gary, do you have any updates as to when that date's going to be? I don't know that a letter is necessarily going to hurt for us to say we're concerned about this to the governor.
Yes, the governor has called a special session for Wednesday, June 24th, 2020 to discuss police accountability and issues related to the COVID pandemic.
So that's early enough, don't you think, or Sonia?
I don't know. I mean,
I know it's the top of their list.
okay. Yeah.
Let's check with Chris and make sure that's the top of the list. Otherwise, we could do a letter next week.
Just advocating for it doesn't ever hurt if it's something we're concerned about for our, renters and property owners. Just setting out the policy priorities for us locally.
So if you sent a letter, we would send it both to the governor and the legislative leadership. So you can decide that now. You can wait till next week.
Shall we decide that now? I'm willing.
Let's do it.
All right, so that's a motion to send a letter to the governor and to the legislature addressing our concern about the extending the moratorium on evictions.
Second.
Yeah, and that does include language about the mortgage holders and the landlords, so that the entire safety net or the entire system is protected, not just the renters, right?
Yes.
Right. As
Okay.
I mentioned, as Sonia mentioned, as we all kind of touched on.
Okay. All right, let's work on a draft letter and we'll have you guys look at it.
We'll bring it back to you to approve before we send it.
All right. All right, next.
Okay,
Question, point of order, Mr. Chairman, you have a
Oh.
motion second.
That's right. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, Brenda?
Yeah, so the motion is to bring the draft back. Is that correct? Not to send it. Okay. So Commissioner Humberston,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Chair Bernard.
Aye, motion carries unanimously.
Yay.
All right, now on to another subject of.
no, we're still on COVID. Not done with COVID yet. Almost.
Oh,
I have a few more. I failed to put my name, but I have a few updates for you. So I am prepared to open the 2 county buildings, the Development Services Building and the Public Services Building next Monday, June 22nd. It will be limited hours, but we will be allowing the public back into the building for those services we can only provide in public. I've already told you about this, commissioners. Staff has been working diligently on preparing. Each department has prepared a public reopening plan. I've seen them. They're in the final stages of approval. There's a few minor tweaks I need to see happen that Nancy and I are working on. The buildings are prepared as far as elevator, reducing individuals in elevators, signage, plenty of, I can't talk this morning, cleaning your hands. What's it called? Things to clean your hands.
Yeah,
all over the building.
sanitizer.
Thank you. Hand sanitizer. Forgive me. I'm a lot going on today. We are not bringing every employee back into the building. Those that are working remotely, and it's working, will continue to, but there will be some staff in the building to help support the public. So that is going forward as of Monday, next Monday, June 22nd. We'll have press releases and other information out to notify the public. So I want to update you on that. Next, commissioners, I emailed you on Friday. I signed 2 contracts on your behalf under the authorization of the COVID-19 emergency declaration. I will state them for you here, although I did email them to you. First is an intergovernmental agreement between Clackamas County and the city of Lake Oswego for COVID-19 testing. The amount is for $30,000, which comes from state funds, not general funds. The second was an intergovernmental agreement between Clackamas County and Oregon Health Sciences University for COVID-19 testing. The amount is for $50,000, which also comes from state funding, not general funds. So you could choose to ratify them right now, or I can bring it this Thursday to your business meeting, whatever you prefer.
Move to ratify.
Second.
moved and seconded to ratify the 2 documents that Mr. Schmidt signed on behalf of the board. Any further discussion? Brenda, please poll us.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Humberston,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Chair Bernard.
Aye, motion carries unanimously. Anything else, Gary?
Thank you. That's it for COVID. So Nancy, thank you for being here. You're welcome to go if you wish. All right, next new topic. Next is resolution or statement denouncing racism. Commissioners, you have discussed this for several weeks now, and I'm seeking your approval to agree to an actual language that we can bring to your business meeting this Thursday for you to approve. I sent you a packet with the issues packet that has 5 different versions of a resolution. Our expert staff, based on all the feedback you have provided, have offered you a version. And you rightfully, as your right as a commissioner, have offered your own individual resolutions as well. So I'm seeking your approval to, as best you can, come to a consensus today so we can notice this and have it on your agenda for this Thursday for you to approve.
So I'm going to jump in and make a motion at this point. And I want to thank everybody who has really worked on it. I was even going to write my own statement, and I thought we've got everybody writing statements. But I really, everyone worked very hard to capture the pain and the sadness that we're all experiencing at this time with our African American and Black communities. But I'm going to move for us to accept Commissioner Savas's, I'm going to move that because what I like about that statement is not only does he capture the pain and the struggle of our African American communities I like the fact that he has really added in people of color throughout. And one of the reasons I'm making this motion is from my personal experience going to a high school that was multiracial, Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, Jewish, a lot of Italian Catholics. And I remember in 1969, we got in trouble with our school board because we had planned a Martin Luther King event for 3 days. This was before there was a Martin Luther King Day. Okay. The school board became very upset. They went after our administrators, and the administrators tried to stop the event. Well, it didn't succeed because all of us went out on the commons of the high school, Black, white, or what I remember is everybody holding hands. And we listened to Jackie Robinson, who was the, as you know, he integrated baseball.
First Black player in the National Leagues.
Jackie Robinson came to our high school and stood way up on it. And this was all, we had administrators running around because they were so worried about all of this. It was peaceful. He told us never to give up. He told us to keep working for equality. But my point is as well, it was not only with my African-American friends, it was with every person of color in that high school. And that's what I just want to make sure that we're acknowledging the mixing pot that we really are from my perspective. It's something I will never forget. And during this time, when all of this is going on, I've been in contact with a lot of my high school friends, and they said, do you remember Kevin Greer, the first African-American president of our high school who was behind this? Do you remember what it was like to have Kenny Martin, one of our defensive linemen, an African-American, stand next to blonde, blue-eyed Mary Skripczak in solidarity against this? So I kind of feel like I've lived it in a way. So that's my long-winded reason why I would like to bring this forward. I'd like to make that motion, and I'd like to get a second.
Second.
Okay. So now, Jim?
I'm turning around reading it.
Oh, okay. But I want
Well,
to.
let's have discussion then. It's
Okay.
been moved and seconded. And I see,
So
go ahead.
yeah.
Okay, Sonia?
Yeah, so Paul, I really appreciate the work that you did on this, and I really appreciate the whereas statements. I think it's really good. The only thing, the input that I've received, because I reached out to talk with many people on this one issue, is that when Black lives matter, all lives matter. And that is all lives of community of color. And as far as discrimination and
You can't come in.
that's a very sweet voice. Let's
Sorry.
see that child, Brenda. This is what it's all about. It's the future. If we could just at the end of that, just to recognize that in this moment in history, I don't really know what the wording is, but I bet Sue can come up with it. I think I might have come up with just one sentence in the resolution that I did that we could look in, just to add the importance of that this moment in history is a recognition of Black lives. And the thing that really has struck me, if you look at all of the communities of color, and there's atrocities everywhere. The one thing that really has struck with me through all of this, and in talking with African-American friends, Latino friends, and lots of different people from across the spectrum, is that if we as a community figure it out for Black lives, you know, the racism that they experience, people who are Black and African-American experience every day, the little chips that are taken away, if we have that paradigm shift for Black Americans, then it will translate to all communities of color. And it's a really important point for this moment in history. So I don't want to lose that. just somewhere in here, but I think it's very well written. If we could add one piece about that, I think we will be.
Well, maybe in that first whereas. And what is the, say it again. Go ahead, Sonia. What did you say?
Well, what I put in the one that, Jim, that you drafted, and then I adapted a little bit. I put in one sentence, when I said, whereas the Black and African American struggle highlights the historic and unconscionable racism that exists against people of color. I mean, this is a spark. This is a historical, the death of George Floyd is such an important spark that has just, it's unprecedented how it is affecting not only Clackamas County, not only Oregon, not only the United States, but across the globe. This has really highlighted it. And I just don't want to lose that piece, that this is about Black lives, but it definitely translates to all people of color. So
how about adding that as your second whereas? Just slipping that in there. What do you think, Paul? Martha made the motion.
well,
Yeah. So it was moved and seconded. I'm definitely willing to include language about Black Lives Matter, and I think a lot of people don't understand what that means. I believe I understand what that means, and but I do like what you said early on, Sonia. Black Lives Matter, and of course, or all lives matter. And I think what a lot of people got confused, I think when people first heard that Black Lives Matter, some people thought, well, if I'm not Black, I guess my life doesn't matter. Well, that's not what it means, but it doesn't mean that. So I think language that reflects as many sentiments as possible, and that's where you get diluted, but I don't want to dilute the meaning of Black Lives Matter, but I would certainly I like what you said on the onset, Sonia, about Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, but having the emphasis on Black lives in this particular circumstance, in this historic time, I think is significant. So I'm willing to add that.
I thought after the first whereas, because you were still on George Floyd.
Well, I'm wondering if it should be, that question, whether it should be a whereas or a therefore.
Okay.
yeah, let me just chime in here. So this concept has come to me from mostly the Latino community and standing in solidarity with the Black community. Because it's when Black lives matter, all lives will matter. So it's when we get that, when Black lives matter, it's a progression for our consciousness. But the sentence that I came up with, that I put into Jim's resolution, that we could put, so Paul's resolution highlights Black and African American, and then it kind of shifts in the whereases. At the end of that shift, I think it would make sense to say, whereas the Black and African American struggle highlights the historic and unconscionable racism that exists against people of color, and then transition it to be more broad. I think that would be the place.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay, so do you understand what she just said? Brenda, I guess, who's ever.
Yes, but you have it in writing in Jim's.
Yes, it's not in Jim's, it's in my edit of Jim's. But
I've got it, Brenda. I've got it, Brenda.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Someone read that one more time.
Oh, do you want me to read it again? It says, whereas, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I lost it. Okay. Yes, whereas the Black and African American struggle highlights the historic and unconscionable racism that exists against all people of color.
I like it.
All right. Gary, you got that?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded with amendments to approve the Paul Savas version of the resolution, adding the one whereas. Any further discussion? Oh, I see Ken still got his hand up, so there's more discussion.
I'm satisfied with that addition. I wanted one that would be as inclusive as possible with respect to discrimination against all people, regardless of not just on the basis of race, but also sexual orientation and issues of that nature. When I've been working on a resolution that has to do with the impact of racism on African American healthcare, and we haven't gotten there yet. But one of the things that I learned from our advisory groups was that they wanted that to include everyone that has had a history of discrimination against them. I'm not going to wordsmith this. I think this goes for the most part where we want to go. I just wanted to be as inclusive as possible because it's not just limited to people of color. Women have suffered discrimination and still do, as do people that are disabled in one way or another, differently abled in one way or another. So I was considering including that kind of language, but I think this is adequate for the time being.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of the time being, as you just said. The issue right now is the murder of George Floyd. It's not, we do already have a resolution that we agreed to. I think I saw it. Mary brought a big poster of it out here that does address that issue specifically. But the timing is
Understood.
about George Floyd.
I understand. I don't want the issue of discrimination broadly spoken to be lost in this discussion as we go forward.
Right. I think
Yeah.
Paul's first. Well, Sonia and then Paul.
Okay, sorry. Ken, your point is well taken, and I think that's the goal that everybody has, that by dealing with this racism on Black lives, we get to everyone else. I mean, I hear you. I know we all have our examples. I'm the mom of a child with disabilities. Martha's the mom of a son who's Asian. You are married to Grace, who's amazing and wonderful. We all have our special populations, but this moment in history is the Black lives are the ones that are on fire. There's a really great cartoon where they have all this conversation going on. I'm happy to send it to you, but where it talks about, well, Black lives matter. Oh, but all lives matter. But all houses matter. But this house is on fire. But doesn't my house matter? It has, moss that's bad or dry rot. It's like, yes, your house matters, but the house is on fire, needs the attention right now. And then it's like, well, why do we do that? And it's like, oh, don't worry, it's too late. The person in the house on fire is dead. I mean, that's how it ends. So it's just this point that we need to focus on what is most urgent in the moment.
I understand that. I'm good to go.
Yeah, one other little piece though, Jim, this was in your early resolutions and we talked about this as a board, and Paul captured it in number 4. He says, Clackamas County will review all of its policies and ordinances for any discriminatory impacts and practices. We had talked about encouraging our cities and to do the same, or we could say other local jurisdictions to do the same, or something along those lines.
Where would that fit in this resolution?
It's number 4.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just tossed them all because I thought we had it done here, so.
I thought we did.
Paul?
Well, and so you're basically saying, what you want to say, Sonia, is you basically want that we're going to encourage other jurisdictions to.
Yep, to review their policies and ordinances as well.
Clackamas County will review all of its policies and impacts and encourages other jurisdictions to do as well.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what Jim came up with early on.
Is that okay with the motion maker, Martha? Okay.
If I may.
Martha, you're on mute. Sorry.
I'm good with this.
Okay, great.
Okay.
All
Jim?
right. Yes.
I think this is relevant to that. Several conversations I've had recently have been addressed about our 15 cities and this issue. And they were wondering if we could do anything that would encourage them to do what we are trying to get done here today. So that addition, I think, is very appropriate.
All right. Paul, your hand is still up.
Yep, I just have something really short. I appreciate everyone's comments. I mentioned it last week, and I'm not a person who likes to plagiarize, but I did take a number of the components that I mentioned last week from the Oregon City School District resolution. So
nice.
as a framework, so I want to make sure, give credit due where it's deserved. And so, and I also want to just appreciate not only them, but other jurisdictions that were able to take action on this immediately. So I appreciate everyone, and we got it right. I think we got a good document, so thank you.
Okay.
I'd just like to add that I'm sure this has been a journey for all of us. I mean, I'm a white guy. I have not had the same experiences that people of color have. I've seen it. And I think it's time that we fix this. And there's no better time than now to resolve this terrible 400-year racism that has occurred in this country, so, and in the world mainly. So with that, Drenda, would you please poll us?
Yes, Chair Bernard. Commissioner Humberston,
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Chair Bernard.
Aye. All right, thank you all very much. That was a wonderful discussion. I appreciate Paul's willingness and Martha's willingness and Sonia's ideas on additions to the proposal. It's be honored to read it. Somebody should read it. Shall we have Paul read it at the business meeting?
Yeah.
All right, great. Gary, what's up next?
Collaboration.
What was that, Commissioner
I
Schrader?
just said this was a great collaboration.
Yeah.
This is how we should do things. Yeah. Thank you so much for everything.
Yes, this will be on your business meeting agenda for this Thursday. It's already noticed. We'll put this revision you just made online today so the public can see it, and then you can approve it formally this Thursday.
One thing, have 5 lines to sign. You can all sign it.
Okay, we can do that. All right, moving on then. August board recess. So commissioners, in the past, you and prior boards have taken 2 weeks off in the month of August for an August recess. And my question is, do you wish to do the same this year? Now, this year is different than prior years. So I want to see if you still wanted to do that. And if so, you normally do it the 2 weeks before Labor Day. Labor Day is a bit later this year. Labor Day is on Monday, September 7th. So the 2 weeks would potentially be the week of August 24th and the week of August 31st, if you chose to do that. So I'm seeking your direction, what you'd like to do this year.
I'm trying to look at my calendar. I am going fishing. If it's the last thing I do, I think I have my, gosh, I just signed up for it. Alice Norris. Martha's birthday. I see Martha's birthday here, and
Getting old. Very old.
I know I just signed up for this. Yeah, so I have September, but I can take time off. What do you guys want to do? You want to split it up, or?
I like having the break. I like just the week. And if you need to take extra time, you should, Jim. You should deserve it.
All right, so yeah, you guys want to go with 2 weeks?
Sure.
All right, I see heads nodding. All right, Gary?
So we'll do it the week of from August 24th through September 6th, those 2 weeks.
That's actually perfect, because that's the week I'm taking off, the first week of September.
Okay. Very good. All right, thank you. Next, review of your business meeting for this Thursday, June 18th,
Nothing on it.
2020. What?
There's nothing on it.
Oh, yes, there is. So you'll have a COVID update where we will have the phase 2 letter application for you to review and potentially approve. There's a Housing Authority consent agenda. You will have a board discussion item on your denouncing racism resolution. And then you have 13 public hearings related to the budget. Hopefully you will adopt the Clackamas County budget this Thursday, and you'll have 13 public hearings to do that. And then you have quite a lengthy consent agenda to finalize some agreements before the end of this fiscal year. So first, there is a late addition to your agenda, and I'm not sure if Rich Swift wants to come in to talk about it. So Drenda, if you could bring him in, please. It is related to a topic you've already discussed, but it is going to be added to your agenda right now. It's not on your agenda currently. It is assignment, assumption, and release of the home loan agreement through the Housing Authority of Clackamas County. You have already discussed this as a board, but due to timing, this needs to be approved before the end of the fiscal year. So Rich, sorry to put you on the spot, but any quick update you can give to the board, since it will be consent and they won't have a chance to talk about it Thursday.
Sure. Gary, could you do me one favor? As I was coming in, what you were saying was, I couldn't, in the transition it stopped. I couldn't hear you. So,
so this is assignment, assumption, and release of home loan agreement for the Housing Authority. The board has discussed this previously, but due to timing for the end of the fiscal year, we've had to add this to your consent agenda, which we'll do today. So you've not seen this on your agenda yet. And since it's a consent agenda, you won't have an opportunity to discuss it. So I was hoping Rich could give you a really quick high-level update to remind you of what you have already done as this comes back to your agenda.
Okay. So actually, I'm not as deep on this as maybe Jill is. I think this is essentially, a usual process for us in terms of things that the Housing Authority owes on. And is this related to Clayton Moore, Gary?
I think it is.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And Stephen, if you know as well, Stephen is out of the room.
So we have actually some final closing documents within Clayton Moore that we have to go through. And the big piece here is actually just the removal of NHA. Northwest Housing Alternatives was the developer of this property. As they finished development, what was going to be happening was it was going to transfer to the Housing Authority to own and subsequently manage.
Yeah.
And so as we go through the final closing documents, one of those things that has to happen is actually the removal of Northwest Housing Alternatives from any of the ownership documents as it pertains to Clayton Moore. And so we are in the final closing period here. And so this is just an approval process to make sure that that happens. This is really actually technical in nature as opposed to anything having to do with finances.
Yeah, I remember this.
Yeah, in some ways, it's just a bookkeeping process to make sure that if anything were to happen with Clayton Moore for any reason, NHA is free and clear of anything going forward with the Clayton Moore property. So it's pretty simple, actually. It's a lot of large technical words to describe something that's pretty simple.
Any questions? All right, well, we'll see it's on Thursday's consent agenda then.
Okay, sure.
Thank you, Rich, very much.
All right, thanks.
One other item I want to draw to your attention, it's on the consent agenda under elected officials. It is approval of an intergovernmental agreement number 1 between TriMet, the City of Portland, and the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office for transit police services. I know there's been some recent conversation about transit police services. The county has been providing this service for a number of years. So this is on your consent agenda. I've talked with Sheriff Roberts, and he and I am in support of continuing this contract. But if you do have concerns, I would ask that you either let me know now or let's talk with the sheriff before Thursday, because it is on your agenda for Thursday.
My only concern would be, are they doing fair inspections? And if you could get an answer to that, I'd appreciate it.
Okay? We'll do that.
Yeah.
Paul?
Oh, sorry.
Paul, then Tanya.
Yeah, I'm hoping we can have a little bit of discussion about it on Thursday, and I'm going to tell you why. One of the gentlemen who was killed on the TriMet train, Rick Best, I knew Ricky Best, and he was defending, him and another gentleman, 3 gentlemen actually were defending a person of color who was being assaulted or abused by that one particular passenger who stabbed him to death. And I just want to, number one, acknowledge that personally, having that loss of that person who I knew, I didn't know him really well, I'll be honest about that, but I did know him. That my concern for the passengers on our transit system is of utmost concern, and I think that somehow it needs to be explained to us if Portland Police Bureau is going to defund the transit police, how security is going to be maintained for all of our passengers in the region, and especially those our citizens in Clackamas County who use the system. So I don't have the answer to, and I'm hoping that by Thursday, someone, whether it's the sheriff or someone, can explain to us, or TriMet, how we're going to maintain the level of safety on that system, because we can't forget the people who perished because of an issue just like this.
And just also, TriMet was quite surprised to hear the mayor of Portland say that they were going to not fund it. It was a total surprise. I called TriMet, but I'll see what I can do, Paul.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be a financial burden on Clackamas County and Washington County if Portland steps away. I mean, this is they can't just, and that's my concern. I haven't had that explanation. How, we can't be indirectly backfilling what Portland Police Bureau does. And I don't know exactly what they're doing. I know they're in budget right now, but it's certainly public. But we shouldn't have to pick up the tab for that. Most of the system is in Portland. It's not in Clackamas County. We get very little, so we shouldn't be stuck with the burden for that. We pay our fair share. I'm happy to continue paying our fair share, but I want to know how that gap is going to be filled.
So cities like Milwaukee, we had a contract. I understand Milwaukee's considering not funding TriMet. I know Gresham. I was involved in that contract negotiation many, many years ago, and it was all about safety. It wasn't about checking to see if somebody paid their fare. But anyway, I'll see what I can find out from Tom. Any other? Oh, Sonia.
So I've been trying to get my head around this issue. Mary Jo's done a lot of work getting me information to research what is it for Clackamas County? What are we doing? How is it funded? What is the purpose? What are the statutes? What was the statutory scheme for what didn't pass? What are all these issues? Because quite frankly, before this issue was brought to my attention, I understood that our transit police promoted safety on transit. I didn't know there was a they were doing a fare inspector, and that African Americans or people of color were 4 times as likely as others to get prosecuted for that. And so there's a lot of inequities. But that being said, regardless of who is looking out for safety, we have an issue of safety on public transit, and that affects our residents. So I am right there with Paul. I want to have an understanding. And what is our role in this? I mean, I'm thinking TriMet has a contract with us and they pay for us to provide the transit police.
Yes.
No, I don't really want to turn away dollars from TriMet that keep our residents safer on public transit. At the same time, I don't want our police officers doing fare inspections. I mean, it just doesn't seem to make sense. So
I'll see if I can
more
get
information, Gary.
All right, we'll get you as much information as we can. We may have to pull this until next week, but it has to be done by June 30th if we're going forward. So we're running out of time, but we'll get you as much as we can. Do you want to have this as a discussion item Thursday? And
sure.
Consent?
No, how about if we pull it now and put it as a discussion next Tuesday?
Okay.
And if we could get people to explain it in a way that, I mean, we just need to understand this. It's important.
Okay, we will have a discussion on Tuesday then, and put it on next Thursday's business meeting as well. Pending conversation Tuesday. Okay. And then finally, a reminder, commissioners, please plan on 3 to 4 hours for your business meeting this Thursday. So cancel the rest of your afternoon because these budget meetings go long, as you know. All right, moving on then, advisory boards and commission appointments. If Brenda would please share.
Yes. Thank you. Commissioners, we have 3 different advisory boards and commissions for appointments today. The first is the Traffic Safety Committee. It has 2 vacancies and they received 2 applications, and they're recommending Raphael Camp and Michael Wilson. Raphael Camp will be serving their first term and Mr. Wilson 3rd term. We have the Design Review Committee, which also had 3 openings. They received 4 applications, 3 incumbents and 1 new application, and they are recommending Rita Baker be reappointed to her 4th term, Tracy Orvis to her 2nd term, and William Brannan to the 2nd term. And 3rd and last, we have the Historic Review Board. All new applications. They had 3 vacancies, 5 applications received. They're recommending Howard Post, Michael Schmier, and Megan Burt be appointed.
So is this a reformation of the Historic Review Board?
That I am not sure about.
Yeah, if they had 3 vacancies.
I think there are 7
Oh,
positions on that.
okay.
Move to approve.
Second,
We moved in second to approve the slate. Brenda.
Okay,
Fuller.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Humberston,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
aye.
Chair Bernard.
Aye, motion carries unanimously. Gary, that's it till 1:30?
No, we're not done yet. Next, Commissioner Savas has an item, Clackamas County letter regarding the Investment Act to Chairman DeFazio. I forwarded you a draft letter this morning, Commissioners. Go ahead.
Is Brenda
Yeah.
good with it?
So the story on this, I don't know if there was confusion, but apparently, from what I read from NACO late yesterday, was that the deadline to get anything into the chair, Congressman DeFazio, chair of the Transportation Committee, is today or tomorrow. Today, yes, today. So, and I understand that lots of jurisdictions, AOC, NACO, everyone's sending in some communications, and Metro is sending in a communication, or I guess some of us are sending in that the what's our group called on that approved this on Friday? Not the strategy meeting, but the
Special Operations Legislative.
Special Ops. Yeah.
Oh,
So special Ops approved a letter. Mike, a little bit of concern about that letter was that it took a bill that had a lot in it, and it kind of narrowed it with the accompanying memo, narrowed it down to some things that don't help Clackamas County, or kind of ruled them out. So I want to make sure that we get our issues on the table. So it's a good letter, I think. And it kind of tells a little bit of the story of Clackamas County, but on these 2 projects, including highway and transit. On 2 corridors. So I would ask your approval, and we can get that to the Congressman's office today.
That a motion, Paul?
I so move.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded to send a letter to Congressman DeFazio supporting a package, a transportation package, basically. And any further discussion?
So I'm trying to read it, and my computer, my iPad is just spinning. So I just haven't read it yet.
So stop it from spinning?
Probably okay, but I'll have to abstain because I haven't read it. But if we wanted to, wait.
Yeah, and just to
Yes, to read
clarify,
it.
maybe Gary.
I finally got it up here now.
Okay, maybe Gary can read it out loud. But I just want to it's more of a thank you letter than it is a package, and it just kind of highlights our 2 priorities of the board. It's just a very similar to what we've done in our materials that we send to our federal delegations. Not much different at all. Just telling the story, and a thank you.
Just wait a second. Let's have Sonia read it.
Oh, isn't this such a good use of everyone's time?
Aye.
Yeah, this is fine. Sorry about that, you guys. I just didn't feel comfortable saying aye on something I hadn't seen or read, so I
Okay,
appreciate
please
it.
poll us.
Okay. Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Humberston,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Chair Bernard.
Aye, motion carries unanimously. Now, Gary, is that the last?
The final item is Commissioner Communications.
I'm done.
I'm good.
I'm
Paul?
good. Good.
I'm good. We've done a lot. We've been working hard.
Ken?
Just one thing, you've probably seen the emails regarding the possibility of having a drive-in theater at the Fairgrounds. This is something that the Fair Board has been working on for some time now under the financial circumstances that we're dealing with COVID and the loss of revenues. It's a great opportunity to help them get revenues. It can be done in a way that is safe with respect to all of our restrictions regarding COVID. I'd like to encourage this board to move on this as quickly as we possibly can, within obviously the rules and regulations we are supposed to follow. Thank you.
Sonia?
Yeah, I just wanted to put on everybody's radar. We're having discussions in the Association of Oregon Counties Human Services Committee, as we all have been hearing about defunding the police, this issue and what this really means. And the one thing that it seems that everyone agrees to across the entire state, across political party, across police or protesters or any dichotomies, is that we have not invested effectively in our safety net, which means that our law enforcement have been doing jobs that they weren't trained for, like social work, suicide prevention, mental health, all of those kinds of things. And so as we are going into this special session or even into the longer session, really looking at our public investments is really important. Not that Clackamas County would ever advocate that we defund our public safety system, but we do need to look at our safety net. And so those conversations are happening, and our collective conversation is very helpful for me as I sit in these committees and can get other perspectives. So please be thinking about that, and let's continue to engage.
All right. Well, with that, Gary, I think Paul.
Yeah, I just had a question, just to go back to Ken's bringing up the drive-in. So is the proposal going to obviously include a screen and a paved parking area? I mean, cars aren't going to be parking on the dust or the dirt, are they?
I think they're planning on the grass.
On the grass? Well, I just want to just say that could be a high maintenance thing, and this also could be a health issue when it comes to dust and pollen and everything else like that. So I don't know how, no one wants to have any more impervious surfaces than we need to, but I will just say, as a person who has allergies, that kind of environment, I have trouble with, and I know a lot of other people would as well. And so high dust areas, the grass could probably be beat to death with cars on top of it. So just want to throw that out there for consideration of the Fair Board. Thank you.
I'll share your concerns with the board.
All right. Anything else? All right. So 1:30?
1:30 return, yes.
All right. With that, we are adjourned.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.